how do I know if my business is eligible for a payroll protection loan? What portion of a payroll protection loan is forgivable if I do get one? And can you give me some advice on how to account for my payroll protection loan money once I get it?
Well, again, thanks for being here. And I'll follow Patricia's lead and say that, again, this is all basically a consultation that I'm doing my best to, give you the facts as I know them about the available funding out there. But to the extent you have questions about your specific businesses, you should be consulting with an attorney and perhaps an accountant. A lot of my clients have been relying on their accountants because, as I'll mention, your eligibility is dependent upon certain financial metrics, which the accountant probably is best situated to put together for you. So as far as who's eligible, I want to say that if you Google the PPP, you'll get 1,000 summaries of it. But if you go to the SBA website, the Small Business Administration website, they do a good job summarizing it. But in short, if you have 500 or less employees and you qualify under a certain type of business, there are certain businesses that are excluded from being eligible, and it's a laundry list of businesses. But most normal businesses do qualify, and the loan is designed to help you prevent you from having to lay off your employees. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Program is designed to let you keep your employees. So what exactly is the payroll cost? It's laid out in a certain list of certain things. Includes I'll read a few of them: vacation time, leave time, benefits, group healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, state and local taxes assessed on employee compensation, a whole host of things. So an accountant can help you figure out the number that you're eligible for. But the biggest question that I've been answering for clients is, the forgiveness question. And I'll give you the caveat. We had a prep call for this webinar. We talked about this. It's really hard to say how loan forgiveness is going to work in this situation because we don't know how it's going to be enforced. I have not seen the loan agreement, so it's hard to advise on exactly what potential consequences there are if you violate the terms of the loan. But in essence, 75% of the amount of loan that you take can be forgiven so long as it's used for the qualified costs that I mentioned, the payroll costs, which includes a bunch of things that I mentioned on the payroll side, but also could be mortgage interest, could be rent, utility costs. But so if you wind up laying off any of your employees, you could lose eligibility. So a lot of people have been asking, what do I do if I already laid the people off? I think the statute allows you to bring those people back. Lots of permutations of, well, what if someone doesn't want to come back? Unfortunately, there's no answers to that question. But the accounting part of the question, the last part that you asked, Jennifer, is a good one. And it was one of my colleagues, I think it was Bradley, who mentioned this yesterday, which I think is a really good idea. A lot of clients apparently are, if they get the money, they're opening a separate bank account, and they're using that bank account to pay only the qualified expenses that you can pay through the loan. So if it comes to it where someone, and when this happens, I don't know, whether it's at the end of year tax filing or some other process, it's some sort of investigation into how you use the funds. If you are using that bank account, which is funded solely with the PPP funds, then you should be able to say that, as you can see, I paid for all of the things that qualify: payroll, mortgage, rent, things of that nature. So that's one way of doing this. But again, I would recommend that you not only speak to your lawyer, but you also speak to your accountant, because the application process, if you haven't went through it, requires a calculation of your payroll costs from the prior year, and you're entitled to two and a half times that amount. There are resources out there that have created calculators for people to do that on their own. If you go on my website, there's a chart that lays out all the different programs and some of the resources. But again, I would probably encourage you to speak to your accountant, who can do the calculations for you. So, if you are filling out the application, you're not taking more money than you're entitled to.
Right. The question that I've heard a lot is a variation of, I'm unemployed. What do I do right now? Do I live on my credit cards if I have to? And sometimes people are a little better resourced and they're asking, do I borrow against my 401k or my IRA right now to see me through?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with the credit card question and whether or not I should live on my credit cards. That is going to be dependent on what everyone's situation is. If that's the only thing you can live on right now, and you're not receiving, and for some reason you're not receiving an unemployment check, then you really don't have another option. Then I guess that's what you have to do. You always try to advise people to avoid credit card debt as much as possible. But if you can't do it in situations like these, then it's really your only option. You need to, after it's all said and done, and we can get back into employment after COVID, and that credit card debt has reached the limit to where you don't think you'll be able to pay it back at a reasonable time, then you can look into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which will allow you to pay back your credit card debt over a period of 5 years. And that's not only your credit card debt. If you have a car loan, you can expand that car loan out for another 5 years. Similarly, if you were behind on your mortgage, the arrearage you build up in your mortgage, and when you file a bankruptcy, you will be able to pay that arrearage over the next 5 years. That's kind of the benefit of what a Chapter 13 bankruptcy will do for you. So I guess the point is, living on your credit cards is, if it's the only option, then that's kind of what you have to do. And when we get out of this, when you get back into employment, looking into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and discussing those options with an attorney are what you're going to need to do. With the IRA and the 401k, should I borrow against it, or should I just pull the money directly out of it? Again, that's going to be dependent on what you are comfortable with and what you just basically feel comfortable with. If you go and just pull it out and use that money, then fine. But all that kind of hurts you on the back end because now I have taken money out of my IRA account, and how am I going to be prepared in the future later when I need to retire? If you feel that you need to do that, and then you're going to be able to replace that money at a later time, then maybe go with that option. If you feel confident in borrowing against it, so that if you do default later, they just come and grab the money out of the IRA account, then go with that option. It's definitely a comfortability in what you're comfortable with answer. If you default when you borrow the money on the IRA account, they will just come in and take it. That's kind of, basically just a comfortability question on what you want to do. And Jennifer, what was my next question?
I'd asked if people should live on their credit card debt if they need to, and then would borrowing or taking money out of an IRA or 401k be a solution? I think you said that the issue is, if you take money out, you're going to potentially be aware that down the road you're not going to have money to retire on unless you can replace that money. And not to anticipate your train of thought, but I think you might have also been thinking about the fact that people have to pay penalties on the monies that they draw out.
Sure. Yeah. I definitely missed that. But if you want to borrow it, I think that's probably a good option. But it's definitely, once again, it's just what you're comfortable with.
What do I do if I cannot pay my mortgage? And does the moratorium on foreclosures end when the shelter in place orders end? When does it end? And what happens next?
Yeah, I'll take the lead. So if you can't pay your mortgage, I guess I'll start with the moratorium question. I'm pretty sure, I'll let everyone else back me up on this. I'm pretty sure the moratorium ends on May 17th. But then again, those foreclosures are only, moratorium only applies to mortgages that are federally backed, which I think we've discussed previously. If you can't pay your mortgage, the first thing you need to do is call your lender and speak with them directly and ask what kind of forbearance programs they have or what kind of assistance they can offer you. The forbearance programs are kind of differ depending on the lender and what your particular circumstances are and what the lender's comfortable with. Some forbearance programs let you will allow you not to pay during a particular set of time, but at the end of the forbearance period, you're going to owe all that money that wasn't paid. So, and they'll sometimes either ask for it all up front, or you can create a payment plan where you're paying more than your mortgage to be able to catch up the arrearage. Similarly, in a bankruptcy, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, if you get a notice of foreclosure, the way to stop that foreclosure is to file the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Once you file it, it allows you to catch up your arrearage over 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and while you are making direct payments in the meantime. Is there anything else?
I think that's right.
The only thing I might add is that this sometimes can be a little bit tough because when you're to do a Chapter 13, you need to have a regular source of income, and unemployment is not necessarily considered a regular source of income. So if you lost your job and the bank won't cooperate with you, you may need to be in touch with your real estate broker to see if you can sell your house. It's not something you would want to do. And certainly speaking to the bank is the first option, but you shouldn't necessarily relax and be like, oh, I'll just file a Chapter 13, which is what a lot of people think they're going to do at the last moment. And, then it turns out that that's just not a sustainable solution. So you really need to, if you're thinking about that, talk to the bank and then talk to a bankruptcy lawyer in your state.
Absolutely. This is a major asset. This is your roof over your head. If you find yourselves in this kind of situation, it really, really behooves you to take the time to talk to a lawyer to make a plan. For how many weeks am I allowed to get unemployment money after I've been laid off? And how do I get health care after I've been laid off?
Yeah. So depending on your circumstances state by state, I can't address the state unemployment because there are certain parameters and certain requirements. Federally, which is the $600 weekly amount, it's a 10-month funded program for individuals. So you can get 10 months through the federal program. So for instance, I have clients out here in California who have called and asked me about the California setup. So once you apply and you are accepted for unemployment in California, you have a max of around $450 to the California unemployment program. And then the federal kicks in, so you can get a max of around $10,050 a week unemployment, which living in California is much, but it's something. And so that is for California, however. Again, depending on the state you live in, that amount from the state might vary, but the federal amount maximum dollars. I think it's actually just $600. You get it. Healthcare, unfortunately, there's no COVID relief for healthcare. So you do have options, but the options are basically the options you would have whether there was a COVID pandemic emergency or not. First is to get on the exchange, to apply through the health insurance exchange and try and get healthcare that way as an individual. And of course, that is going to be more expensive than if you're under a group plan through your employer. It's, it averages how much more expensive it's going to be, but it's going to be at least, 25 to 33% more. And secondly, COBRA, that's an option for a lot of people. You can pay the COBRA program that kind of locks in your rate through your group plan through your employer. I mean, those are basically the two options for healthcare if you lose your healthcare through your employer.
Is there a way for me to get lost wages back since I am on reduced hours due to COVID-19? And here's a similar question. I am furloughed for 1 week a month. Can I claim unemployment for that lost week?
Okay, so the first question, does your employer owe you the wages? No. From the route from what we see with this how COVID relief works, no, it's either unemployment or nothing. So no, your employer isn't on the hook for your wages unless there was a legal violation. Unless there was a legal violation, but that's litigation. That's something different. When it comes to just statutory rights of compensation due to the impact of your income from COVID-related issues, no. Secondly, furlough, 1 week a month. That you would be. I mentioned it earlier. The federal minimum, you would be owed the 1 week a month. You would have to apply for unemployment and receive your weekly amount, at least the federal minimum, and then again you might satisfy your state's unemployment insurance requirements and receive state unemployment benefits as well as federal.
Got it. All right, I'm going to ask.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
What Ethan said, that's a good point. The last thing that he said there, just know that, you know, depending on your state, you may have to, or you may have the option to sign on or call once a week. And in New York State, it's called certifying for benefits. So you can get benefits even if you're partially employed up to 34 hours a week. So if you all of a sudden got a bunch of work, you would just tell them your claim would remain open, and you'd continually sign on weekly to say how much time you worked, how much money you made, and they would adjust your benefits to that.
Got it. But this varies, whether or not this is available.
As much as anything, yes.
Got it. Okay.